like to call the meeting of the school board to order for November 12th at 7 p.m. at the SAU office. If we could start with a salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'll start with a roll call, please.
Praise here.
Karate here. Keen here. Kid here.
Wolfer here.
Okay. And we'll start right in with public input. So I need the input sheet. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's okay.
Jeff Warren is first.
Who is it?
Jeff Warren.
Okay.
Are you the new chair?
Sorry. We have a novice videographer here, so we'll give him time to, if you could just state your name, your address. And
My name is Jeff Warren. I live on 14 Nathaniel Brown Drive in Fremont, and I usually don't come out for this. My bad. But this is just too important that I felt that I had to come in and say something along with others. So what we have is, you know, we hold our children accountable as parents and educators with agendas and expectations. You guys are the board we elected, and as those who elected, all of you, we have expectations from you to follow through on the agendas you set forth. Today we present a petition asking you, our school board, to follow through on the commitment you made to our community for a search committee, a full and thorough search for the most qualified candidate for our school for superintendent. The 157 signatures I'm going to give you here are from parents, citizens, teachers, and school staff asking this of our Ellis School Board. You set an agenda, a job posting, a goal, and a timeline to our community on June 18, 2013, and have also referred to this several times during subsequent board meetings. So you would need to ask yourselves, what kind of message are you sending to our community, its teachers, and its children by missing your very own accountability? And it's just very frustrating to hear that, you know, all of this is being ignored when that's what you said you were going to do. And I would expect you to follow through, because if me as a parent said that to my children, they'd expect me to follow through. So respectfully, I'd like to submit this and ask that you follow through with what you did. You said you would. Okay? Thanks.
who's next?
Jennifer Brown.
Jen.
Sorry, I'm going to stand just because I'm behind my tall friend's head. Jennifer Brown, 3 Squire Road. I have sent you guys letters, and I know they've been acknowledged. Thank you very much for receiving them. I just wanted to take my opportunity during public input to say to you all, and look at you, because text is very unfortunate, so Ida and Andy and Sharon, Tammy and Gray, that I know the jobs that you're tasked with doing are not easy. And I know you try to make the best decisions you can. As a community, I don't know if there's just a lack of transparency, which is a word that keeps coming up, but there's an expectation for the highest leadership in our district. And I think as parents, as educators, as community members, we all feel that the highest consideration and regard should be taken in finding the most qualified candidate in our very special climate that's Fremont, and we all felt that there was an intention set forth that we were going to follow through with, and it was rather abruptly changed, and I think it was not clear as to exactly why. I know you stated that there would be a follow-up agenda, perhaps with some discussion, but it's been done at that point. And as we discuss it as a school board and as parents, the main concern is making sure our school is moving forward with the best leadership, that our staff is getting the best support they can from the top, that our students are getting the best learning they can, but also as a taxpayer, when we're considering the highest paid position in this town, it has to be gone into with confidence, especially when we're making a 5-year commitment to this person. And I just really feel like there needs to be better explanation, better understanding from the community, because clearly we have the support of a town that wants to get behind this board to do the best we can for our school, and we want to do that unified, and it seems as though there's a consensus at the table that's not translating to the community, And there should be an accountability there as elected officials to represent our school, our staff, us, our children. And I think that's really what we're all asking you for, not only with this superintendent decision, but this sets the stage for other decisions that are huge that you guys make as well. So that's what brings me here tonight. That's what brings me to the school to volunteer every day. That's what keeps me in this community, giving everything I have as a volunteer to keep myself educated and to keep myself involved, is for everybody, including you guys, including our teachers, including all of these parents. So thank you.
Carla Smith.
Carla Smith, 28 Ann Lane. I came today, I just want my voice to be heard as well, as a citizen and a taxpayer in Fremont, and as well as a staff member at Ellis School, that I think this is a very huge decision. And 5 years is a long time to commit for anybody, without it being a really researched and thoughtful discussion that includes the community, includes the parents, and includes the staff. And I just hope that you respectfully consider the petition that was brought forth and go with what's right for the town. You know, what's best for our students and what's also fiscally responsible to the taxpayers to have this informed decision made. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie Chaplin.
I don't have anything to say at this time, just yet.
Jason Chaplin.
Jason Chaplin, 180 Beatty Hill Road in Fremont. I'm really here to get a better understanding of what the situation is that's happening here. It does seem like there's a bit of a disconnect between what was previously committed to and what we're really hoping to happen here. So I certainly do throw my support behind an extended search for the right candidate for this position. So.
Thank you. Sean Brault.
Sean Crowell, 92 Beatty Hill Road. As was said previously, I'm also a very involved parent. When my son first started, I remember coming to some meetings and they were not well attended. Now we are having tons of people attend meetings. When I can't get to a meeting, I'm reading minutes. And I just wanted to say that on July 18th, 2013, this board made a promise to the community, parents, and school to hold a full search for a new superintendent of the District 83. You outlined the steps that would be taken and the makeup of the search committee you would like to see. You stated that any interim superintendent would be more than welcome to put his or her resume in with the ones received from the job posting. Whether the interim superintendent does or does not wish to submit his or her resume for the full search should not have an impact on conducting the search itself. We relied on that promise, and now you're trying to change that. This is the highest paid position in our school and town, and your promise to hold full search needs to be honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Brault.
Hi, I'm Ray Peralt, also from 92 Beatty Hill Road. And what brings me here tonight is, obviously my wife is very involved in the school and been aware of all that's been going on here. And yes, in July, you guys outlined what you were going to do. You're going to hire an interim superintendent. You're going to, do a full search for the best candidate. And that didn't happen. There was a survey held at the school. I know you got those surveys back, right?
It was an evaluation.
An evaluation, which there were also a lot, I'm sure there were a lot of write-ins that went along with that stated that they wanted a full search done. And instead, you still went and offered a 5-year contract to someone who I have no idea. I've never even met this person. I don't care who they are. A 5-year contract for the highest paid person, in this town, with very little experience seems very odd to me. And it's very odd that the board would go through with this kind of contract. A lot of people have put a lot of work into getting our school to where it is. And if people start leaving or are not happy and are not on board with the superintendent, that's going to destroy everything that's been done in this town. And it's too important for us to try to rebuild with someone in a position for 5 years. we need to do the best job possible to get the best candidate. If that means, I know I've heard, this person has said she's not gonna put her name in the hat if you guys do a full search. Well, so be it. It doesn't matter if she puts her name in the hat. There are plenty of other fish in the sea. There's plenty of other good candidates that even had a lot more experience being a superintendent. Why this person has been chosen, why our thoughts have been ignored, I have no idea. I'd love to be able to reply to you once you've given your explanation of why you've done what you've done. And if the board continues, I'm not done yet, please. If the board continues and does this 5-year contract with this person, they will be held accountable. Okay, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Jeff Warren?
I already spoke.
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything else.
No, not yet.
Brittany Thompson had a possibly.
I'm all set.
Okay. Elizabeth Rosa, possibly.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rosa, 29 Cooper Drive. So first and foremost, I want to thank you all for volunteering to do this job. A lot of us here do FAA, Parks and Rec, and every other aspect of the town volunteering. So I do appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you stepping up to the task. And I know that like all those other positions, it can be frustrating at times and tiresome. And you may feel like nobody cares as much. Anyways, we'll just make this selection. I'm not saying that's what went into your decision, but clearly, as you can see, people do care. So with that, I just want to say a couple things. First and foremost, even though you took surveys, clearly you didn't get as many as you're going to get responses tonight to this kind of an impact of what your decision that was made. I would think that the most important surveys you would want is maybe after 6 months of doing the job or a year, that you would ask every teacher, the principal, and the key staff members of the school what they think of the person that's running their district school, and get their opinions on whether they think she's the perfect person for the job. Then to express those opinions to all of us so that we can have a better understanding, because we're not with her day to day. We don't see what she does and the impact she makes. Some people can come to a position and be very, excited and want all kinds of change. And sometimes change is good in small doses without major impact to the community. And I think there's a feeling of impact of loss of teachers, possible impact of losing key staff members that we're all very happy with. And in the end, that decision you've made to make a selection earlier than intended could cost us many staff members that you'll be hiring down the line to make up for it. I work for the government, most people know that, and we only have a president for 4 years. Somebody said that, and I was like, you know what, you're right. And then I thought, okay, government contracts, how do those work? A lot of times, maybe even selecting someone for the max of a 2-year with 3 option years, you do a really good job, you prove yourself to us, you get option year 3. You do a great job, you get option year 4. Is incentive for someone to keep going, working hard for the community, and knowing that the public is watching, because those option years are terms that you want to keep getting, kind of like Raytheon, Boeing, BAE. We do that with a lot of our contracts to keep them incentivized to do good work for us. Just something to consider. If somehow you do end up going with that decision and steadfast and strong to your opinions, I would hope that you'd consider changing your contract to make a little more sense than 5 years that locks you into a contract with somebody that you have no out with, unless there's an out clause. I don't know if there is one, and I'd like to know that at some point this evening. And I just want to thank you again for what you do. So please don't take this as personal attacks on you. It's certainly not intended to be that way, and I can only speak for myself, but I think that I can speak for my community members to say that's not the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Corsi?
I'm good at this podcast.
No? Okay. Sue Hinckley, maybe? I'm all set. Michelle Coleman? Oh, I'm sorry, she said no. Doreen Caswell? Sure. First of all, obviously, we put forward the petition, and we got over 150 signatures in just a couple of days. How long was that survey available for parents to get? The one for the evaluation?
10 days.
10 days. In 10 days, you received how many?
80.
80. And of the 80, you said only 34% actually wrote in above and beyond the questions, right? Isn't that?
No, we didn't say that.
Oh, I thought that's what Sharon said, 34% last time wrote in, they'd like a full search to be done? Okay. And don't you find that pretty statistically significant that people would actually go above and beyond the evaluation to write that in?
We're
No?
really not supposed to respond, or we're
Okay,
supposed
all
to
right,
let you
all right, I
say.
just wanted to ask that question. But in addition, I noticed when I took the survey, and maybe I didn't read it properly, I didn't see one single question in regards to that survey evaluation that asked if we could see her being full-term. I didn't see one single question asking if we would consider hiring her.
Careful, there's somebody behind you, John.
So in that respect, I think we misunderstood the intended purpose of that survey.
Can I address that? I'd like to address that.
You can address it later, because we're all gonna respond to whatever we wanna say to the people in the public afterwards. So
Okay, 'cause
we'll
as a-
take notes if you wanna say something.
Thank you, Ida. As a community, we perceive that survey more or less to be similar to what it was for Superintendent Lenga, and it was more like a barometer check to see how she was doing. We didn't know that, as I read in the paper, after the surveys were done, you decided to forego the process of hiring another superintendent. So those surveys were actually pretty integral based off of what we read and what was said by the board. Now, that being said, I feel as a community member, I was deceived, because if it was for that purpose, I certainly would have been much more triumphant in, talking with my community members, saying, you guys, these surveys aren't barometer checks. These surveys are actually being used as a tool to forego the process that was talked about on June 18th at a board meeting, where there was actually an agenda written up, a job posting, and a guideline saying by July 2014, the hope was to have the new superintendent in place. And you also did say the current one could certainly go for the position, and that would be great. In addition, I know that board members, you guys are here for a reason. And I have to believe, and I know in my heart of hearts that some of you are here because you wanted your voice heard, because you were members of the community, and you felt you wanted something done for your children at some point in time. And you said, you know what? That board didn't listen to me when I was trying to get something accomplished. So what did you do? You came forward and you went to the board to become board members. That being said, to me speaks volumes, and that's why I voted for you. That's why my hat is tipped to you, because that's what I expect of you. You set expectations as parents, you set expectations as board members. And quite honestly, to use a tool where you only had 80 responses from, where it was available for 2 weeks, to me is a pretty poor outcome of a survey. So I thank you for being on the board, but as a member of the community, I am a bit disappointed.
Thank you. Jennifer Rydeen?
Jennifer Rydeen, 58 Folsom Meadow. I just want to say that I do thank you all for the work that you do, and I'm a volunteer a lot, and I know it's very hard work. I've been to many board meetings, and you've done a lot of good for our school, and I do want to trust that the decisions you make are good decisions, because I know that that's what we all strive to do, is make good decisions. I just also want to know that you're listening to your community, because that's part of being an elected official, is listening. Sometimes opinions can be different, and I understand that, but I also think it's a benefit to not only the school but the community to have that transparency where you do take into consideration how we feel, and that in the past has sometimes been good and sometimes been not so good. So again, I appreciate the good things that you do, and I know it's hard work, but a little more transparency would be nice, and listening to the community, and especially the school and administration, would be very helpful in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget Payne, maybe? Dawn Kidd, maybe?
can you excuse me the fact that I don't stand up? John Kidd, 26 Scribner. I want to speak as a townsperson and not a staff member. Most of you know that I'm both. I worked in this town for 8 years, as most people know, before I decided to move here. And I had choices on where I was going to move. And I made the choice to move to Fremont because I trusted in my own school. I valued the education. I saw the test scores, they're going up. I trusted the principal we had. I trusted the board we had. And I just decided to go forward with that. I really love this town. I really like the parent base that's here. I've worked in other districts. I did not feel anything like this in any other district that I was in. I've worked in large and small districts. This town is unique. It is a town that has a voice. Long before this superintendent from the first year, I have never had as many parents talking to me as I have before. This town cares about everything that goes in it. In other towns, I think that you could probably make a decision like this, and it can be made independently. But I think the nature of this town, this is Fremont's culture, this is Fremont's personality. And we want, and I'm going to say we, not you anymore, we want to be involved in our school. As a staff member, I have other opinions, but as a mother of 2 children in this town, only one of which goes to Ellis now, I want to be involved in what goes on, and I'm darn sure that this school is going to be the best that it can. I've got 2 more years for this child, and I want the best out of the school, and I will settle for nothing less than the best for my kids. And I want to be part of whatever that best is. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Sue Levine?
Thanks. Sue Levine, 72 Road Drive. I want to also offer my thanks to all of you for the service that you provide. I know that there are many long evenings spent both visibly and when you're having policy meetings that you don't necessarily have attendance to, and it's a big commitment away from families on top of jobs and everything else that people are juggling, so I appreciate that. And much of what I've said I've also conveyed via email, but I did want to make the point that to me this is really not about Dr. Fox. In my interactions with her, she seems very intelligent and very professional and very organized. I've just observed her at these meetings, but you can learn a lot by observing someone. To me, it's really about the process, and in the memo, Ida, that you had drafted back, that was part of the June 18 minutes to the community, I thought you laid out a really excellent plan, and I felt like reading that, even now, just going back and refreshing my memory and reading it again, I felt like it was such a well-organized and well-thought-out plan, and it was going to include a search committee with members from the principal, the financial administrator, the facilities director, a middle school classroom teacher, an elementary school classroom teacher, a case manager, a paraprofessional, an administrative assistant, 5 to 6 community members, and be moderated by a board member. And I couldn't think of a better model for a search. And I really, to me, process in management is very important. Sorry, I have allergies, so my voice gets a little caught up. But I think from thinking of my time in management, it's important to follow through on process, and I think that's what I personally, as a community member, would like to see, is that follow through and knowing that collaborative, open process has been gone through. And I would love to see, as I said, my observation of Dr. Cox has been very positive, and I would love to see her be part of a pool of qualified candidates that we can review and assess as a community, and make sure that we get the best fit. I know that continuity in leadership is important, and it can't be easy for all of you to have this turnover as well, because it's challenging as you have to educate a new superintendent. And if we could have continuity for the school and for the community, on that June 18th meeting, we had that letter from the teachers speaking about morale, and I think, what I read in between the lines is there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, a lot of not knowing if it's okay to speak up. And I really value all that the teachers and staff and administration bring to the table as well. And I think having that open process would be helpful for them and lead to the best end result. In terms of the surveys, I had mentioned in a couple of my emails the 34% asking for the full search. I know at the, I think it was October 8th meeting when this was first brought up, I had made the request that the evaluation form, sorry I keep saying survey, but it's evaluation form, include a question to the community, would you want a full search instead? And I imagine in the non-public session that was discussed along with the decision to not email the evaluation form out, but the decision was arrived at to not put that on there. So just considering that as a write-in candidate, if you will, to me, and I know Doreen mentioned this as well, but 34% is fairly significant when you consider it as a write-in. And I know you're going to speak about whether additional data can be shared from that. That's not encroaching on any confidentiality, but I certainly would be interested to know about that. And in terms of the 5-year commitment, setting aside, the full search process and not following through on that, I think Elizabeth said it very well in terms of, in the business world, 5 years just seems to be extremely long contract, and I understand that there's a desire to give the community and the staff what they want in terms of longevity and continuity, but I think that needs to be arrived at in the right way, and I fully support the idea of options with any candidate that we hire, based to make sure that we're keeping that desire to continue to excel and perform and exceed expectations. And I do worry where the feeling is that perhaps the openness and the collaborativeness that might have been achieved with the plan that was outlined in the memo on the 18th, I worry that we will lose some key people at the school, and I think that's just a risk for our district that I really hope we don't see fulfilled. And that's really all I wanted to say. And again, thank you all for what you're doing and for our school and for the district. And I will continue to be here. And if there's anything that I can do to assist, please let me know.
Thank you. Angela O'Connell. I'm Angela O'Connell, 63 Gristmill Road. I too was at the June 18th meeting, and I know that I came into the meeting very disappointed that Ms. Langa had chose to leave, and that we were in position once again to having to find a new superintendent, but this time even with a shorter window and lead time and so forth. I came in very concerned, left feeling a little bit better with the plan that was laid out, feeling that we would, as a town community school board, have the ability to do the right search to find the right fit for the right candidate to be here to work with us long-term for Alice. I even volunteered to be on the search committee, and I know a few others have as well. And then when we found, when Dr. Cox was appointed, knew it was an interim position, 1-year position, while we were going to still sustain and do the research, do the search committee. Once again, volunteered to be on the search committee. I have had the opportunity to work with Dr. Cox to some extent with the curriculum committee, and there are some things that I feel that she would do well with, policies and so forth. There are some concerns that I did have that I put on the evaluation about interaction at the school with the staff and the students and so forth. I volunteer as much as I possibly can, both in community and at the school. And I had never seen Dr. Cox at the school, where I had multiple times saw Dr. Langa or Miss Langa at this school, even on the first day of school. as well as my children even didn't know who Dr. Cox is, but knew who Ms. Langle was. So little things like that. And once again, it was a very short time period that we had to evaluate on, but with that said, that's what I filled out my survey based on. With that said, I did put down also that I would like to see a full search committee. And once again, not saying that Dr. Cox was not the right person, but saying based on the commitment made, based on the data to date, and based on the plan that was outlined, that's really what I think we deserve as a school and a community, the full search. 34 people asking for a full search, that's actually 43% of the
It
people.
was 34 people.
It was 34%, okay, so it's 34%. I'm not sure how we can, if the surveys could be shared with the public, if a synopsis of the surveys could be shared. I'm not sure what the thought process was on the 5-year term, if that could be shared with us, why a 5-year term, that's never been done before. The other thing is I'd like to understand why, if this was being used as a permanent position, why were community members, staff, some of the people that were outlined in the plan not included to make that decision then? I feel that if those people would have been included to make this permanent decision, maybe it would be more supportive and more understood than also out there in the community. So I urge you to reconsider it based on the petition that you received today, and to help us be partners to improve the school and the community.
Thank you. Deb doesn't want to speak. A few people came in later. Would you like to, if you could just state your name and address?
Dan Kayaki at 51 Louise Lane, and sorry if I make a point that's already been made. I had questions or concerns around, first to Sue's point, Sue Levine's point, why a process that clearly worked last year when Mrs. Langman was landed as a candidate, and it was laid out again as a process for this search, was so abruptly abandoned so soon into the tenure of the superintendent, who really only had about 6 weeks of actual school time under her belt. I had a question, did the posting ever go up? It was my understanding in the June 18th meeting that the posting would be going up immediately in conjunction with the superintendent starting. I think that's how it's stated in the minutes.
No.
That was my interpretation.
Right, the
of what's in
posting
minutes.
didn't go up.
Okay.
I don't think we realized that we were supposed to do that.
I guess another
This soon.
question would be, did Dr. Cox ever apply to a posting, or was she just granted the position?
She applied for the interim position.
Right, but was there a full-time posting put up?
No.
Okay. And then I guess going back to the adherence to the process, I'm not sure how much survey data or feedback data the town has utilized, but every survey I've ever been involved in, and I'm involved in quite a few, 34% is considered an area of opportunity, like it's an area that you would be considered weekend. And that's saying nothing about Dr. Cox's performance, but it is a statement that at the very least, a process that we know worked last year should be adhered to again versus completely abandoned and abruptly overlooked. And then in conjunction with that, offering a tenure that is precedent setting in terms of its length. I think all of these events together are really startling in terms of what drove these types of decisions, and I think the lack of transparency on that is very unnerving. And as someone, again, who, much like everyone in here, is very involved in the community, the lack of trust it creates is strong. And I respect all of the work that everyone does here, but at the same time, I think that lack of transparency in conjunction with everything that's happened is really eye-opening, and I think we deserve more information than we're receiving. So, thank you.
Thank you. John, you came in late, do you want?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did anybody else come in after the board one? Okay, I think I'm going to give the board the opportunity to answer people's questions, and the same format, however, let them speak. To keep notes, if you can raise your hand after, and we can answer some more questions if it raises more questions for you.
Who will be allowed to speak after?
Yes,
normally,
that's okay. Normally, you do the public input, then you do your meeting. But because this is such a hot topic for a lot of you out there, we're gonna mix it up a little as long as the board is okay with me making that decision as a chair. Because your voices are important to us, and we need to get information to you, I think, tonight, and then hear back from you again after that. So, does anybody wanna start?
Can we first show the email so that they understand what was sent out?
What email?
When the blast was done for
For
the
the
evaluation,
evaluations?
stating, I mean, I don't know, some, okay.
So that's what I was gonna speak to, actually, when Doreen said that she felt deceived. I wanted to speak to that because when we had the meeting in the library where we talked about putting an evaluation form out to the community, we talked about the fact that we were considering offering a position rather than doing a full search. And we wanted to know, we wanted to do an evaluation. The board was trying to decide which way to go, and given the situation that we undertook with Ms. Lango, we felt we should maybe do an evaluation first and see how everybody felt Dr. Cox was doing, and see how the board felt Dr. Cox was doing. So when we spoke at the meeting in the library, it was, I guess, in my opinion, it was clear, but apparently it wasn't clear, that we were putting an evaluation out because we wanted the community's input and the staff's input as to how they felt she was doing as an administrator in the building, so that we could weigh the decision whether to offer her the position or do the search. And the memo that came out that covered the evaluation says, in June, we announced the hiring of an interim superintendent with the understanding there would not be enough time to organize and schedule a full search committee for a permanent superintendent prior to the start of a new school year. As we continue to plan for our district's future needs, we would like to begin the process of evaluating the current superintendent, Dr. Betsy Cox-Butow, as a possible candidate for the superintendent's position. We would like to do this prior to considering whether a superintendent search committee will be appointed. In order for the school board to make an informed decision, we are seeking the input of all stakeholders. Please take this opportunity to complete an evaluation form that you may pick up at the Ellis School main office, the Fremont Town Hall, or the SAU office. All completed forms must be returned no later than noontime on Monday, October 28th. All evaluation forms will remain confidential. Completed forms may be submitted via the following options. Forms may be dropped off at the Ellis School main office. Attention School Board. Forms may be emailed to schoolboard@SAU83.org. Forms may be dropped off or mailed to Fremont School Board, care of SAU office, Black Rocks Village, 5 Hall Road, Unit 1, Fremont, New Hampshire, 03044. For validation and control purposes, we are unable to send out electronic copies of the evaluation form. We apologize for this inconvenience and hope everyone who wishes to participate will be able to do so. You will find additional attachments of a letter from Dr. Cox and her resume. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact the school board at schoolboard@SAU83.org. Thank you, we greatly appreciate your time and consideration. So in the cover letter, it was completely clear that the intent of the evaluation was to determine whether we did a search or offered Dr. Cox the position. So it is
I don't think
perplexing.
everybody felt that it wasn't clear.
The
but-
language possible candidate. A candidate is somebody who's
May
applying
be
to
used.
run against other candidates to be considered for a position. So I think that language might have created some of the confusion. If your interpretation was as a possible, as our
candidate.
hire versus a
Candidate.
possible candidate.
Okay.
And just to expound on that, you said it may be used, didn't say will be used, you said it may be used. And maybe with when you only received 80 inputs, a follow-on email out saying, due to lack of participation, we want you to be informed based on the 80. We are definitely going to use this information. You may want to reconsider submitting your input. And again, just to stress, this evaluation was done on somebody that had at the most worked with the school system for about 6 weeks, right, or interacted with the actual school in session. Even kids take 2 weeks to adjust to school starting, right? I know most employees start off really great behavior, especially the first month of work, and they're usually evaluated first quarter. So 3 months after somebody starts a job, they're evaluated the first time on their performance typically in most companies. And so I would have thought an evaluation like this, maybe an initial one would be done. Maybe after that you follow it up with an email that says, the next evaluation we put out, this is your last chance. We have decided to go with this process to make our decision. Based on that, we are giving you one more opportunity to provide your feedback. Now this person's been in the system for 3 months. Hopefully you've had a chance to evaluate her performance or get feedback about her performance, and you should complete your survey if you want to have any say.
That's a good point.
I think it's, Tammy Bond, 21 Pond Lane too, I think it's really difficult in that time period with the restrictions that were on just getting the survey alone, the evaluation form alone, really difficult for the typical working parent of a student at Ellis. It wasn't until there was kind of like, what do you mean I can't? Then it was like, okay, well we can send them home with your children. So I don't know how far into the survey time period that became allowed, but for parents who are working and getting their kids off and not being able to get to the school, I mean, it was hard enough for me to register my car today and I was 2 weeks overdue just to get to the town during times that are open. But I'm just using that as kind of an example. The fact that it wasn't available by email, initially you couldn't pick it up for your spouse, you couldn't be sent home with your kids. Those restrictions alone, I think, are cumbersome for parents who are juggling lots with their kids to be able to meet those time demands. And then on top of that, we're evaluating someone that's only been 6 weeks on the job, and for most parents, I'm not sure that that's a fair question to ask them.
Well, she started July 1st, just so you guys know.
But the parent interaction.
Parent interaction starts in September, along with student interaction, and which some parents have already stated their kids have never even seen her in the school system.
If we could just keep it to,
Sorry.
that's okay, just if you could just state your name for the record before and try to let us call on maybe somebody to talk instead of having everybody talk, that would be great. There's a gentleman in the back.
Yeah, Matt Corsi, 9 Buck Road. I just want to expound on the whole entire survey evaluation thing. It was really questionable for me as to the validity of this survey evaluation in the first place. If you look in the real world, right? Imagine if somebody handed you a resume and handed you a survey for somebody, right, and said, please tell me how this person is doing at their job. You really cannot do that from a resume, okay? I actually was handed the resume by Sharon while I was registering my car. And I can imagine there are other people in the town who may not even have children who are handed these evaluation forms. They have no understanding of who this person is, they're obviously, associated with the school, but who this person is, and not even a clue as how this person is doing, right? And I told Sharon, I said, I can't accept the survey, I don't know the woman, okay? So the thing is, when I go to vote for president, say, or for an elected official, I have to read up on that person, right? I can't make an informed decision if I don't have any information. And I have a feeling maybe a lot of the reason why you didn't get a lot of surveys back is people didn't know who the person was. Hopefully the surveys you did get back were from people that did know who the person was, but I would assume that the people that didn't know who they were, you'd have to throw those out because they're statistically insignificant, okay? So I can't see how the survey could actually be used to make the decision.
I want to just respond to a couple of things that have been said, because I think you need to know where we were coming from when we actually put the eval form out there. And I did, I have something written up, but I can speak from the heart. I don't need to speak from a piece of paper tonight. We were in a position, the board, where we recognized that we had a superintendent that we felt really, really fit the bill here. Very surprising to have an interim superintendent found where we were finding it extremely, I'll speak for myself because I don't want to speak for the board. I found her to be an extremely effective superintendent in this district from my point of view as the chair of the board. Seeing her work in this office, placing the financial administrator that we did not have, we had a vacancy in that position as well. She was very busy here in this office for a while, just filling positions, doing her job as the superintendent of the SAU and working with the board very effectively. And I was very pleased with that. There were some other issues that I cannot share with you that are significant to our school district, that I feel are extremely important to be taken care of, that she is going to be able to do for us. And I recognized that if we were gonna do this, we had to hurry up and do this, my personal opinion. I really believe that because we had this individual here and she was as good as she had been working out to be, I felt it imperative to move forward to try to keep her as our superintendent and to give her the power that she would need to not be just an intern that's sitting here, passing through for a year, but actually have a position where she would actually be respected and it would be a long-term affair so that things could get done, that need to get done in our district. And so I did not want to ignore the people out there who might have something to say about it. So we put together the eval forms so the public could have a say if they knew anything about her. We didn't want to force anybody to fill out an eval form if they didn't know the individual. But we wanted to hear from as many people who had some contact with her as to how they felt. We didn't expect the whole town to fill out an eval form on a woman that they'd never met. But what we did want is feedback from as many people that had contact with her to find out if she was really not the right candidate or if she was doing a good job. That's why we did the eval forms, not to make everybody fill out a form who didn't know her, not to make people feel like they had to fill out a form even if they didn't know her. It was to make sure that we were getting input from everybody before we made a decision as the board. And we are the ones who are responsible for having to make this decision, this very difficult decision for our community. But I, as chair, I have to make the best decision for the district, and I appreciate everybody's voice here, and I understand what you're saying, and many of the conversations you've been having tonight have been conversations we've had around the board, between all of us, because all of us, at one form or another, represent one of you guys out there. We're all a little different in what our makeup is, and whether we've had kids in the school, or whether we do have kids in the school, or whether we've never had kids in the school. But we didn't do this evaluation form to get thousands. We got it to give everybody a chance to have a say if they felt they had something to say. And then we took all of them into account. That's why we did this. And it's not a survey. It was an evaluation form. How's she been doing for you? And I'm hearing that Dr. Cox is not the problem, it's the process. But honestly, what we need to know is who's going to be our next superintendent that's going to get the job done for us in this district. So, I'll start on this side and go this way, if that's okay. Remember, sort of. Don, Pip?
I guess maybe I'm going to ask a little bit of a pointed question. One of my concerns would be, I know the way that you felt, you guys have been very, very vocal about that, and I appreciate that. And I have seen some good things, and I have seen some things that concern me, and I'm sure we've talked about that. One of my concerns is being a staff member, and if you don't know, I'm also union president. For some reason or another, I'm a magnet for people to come talk to. In the last week, I have probably had 20 people come talk to me. One of my concerns is that they kind of revealed to me what was on their survey. And the feeling from some of the staff is, if these surveys were all done, and again,
They're all confidential.
I'm just speaking from, and I'm just speaking from.
Well, you can tell them, they're all confidential. Nobody has seen them other than the 5 of us.
Right, but what I'm saying is, the concern that I know is out there amongst staff and other people is, if we all turned it in this way, this is what has been said to me, I'm not speaking for myself, I'm speaking for other people that have spoken to me, was the general characteristic of the evaluation a positive one, and therefore used to help the board make its decision? If it wasn't a positive one, was that overridden by what they saw? Is it possible that you guys are seeing things that we can't? I'm a staff member, I see more than you do, some of you are in the school more than whatever, but you're right, it's just kind of weird what feedback is being used, and I'm speaking right now for people that have come to talk to me. That's all I'm saying, and I'm not putting a slant on anything, I'm just saying that for some reason or another, I'm one of those people that people come talk to me, that's why they elected me. And And I've had so many people come to talk to me to express their opinion. I'm trying to mesh it all in, and I'm just throwing this information out there. I'm not looking for you, and I don't want you to reveal anything.
I guess I'm trying to understand your point, because I thought initially you were going to say, somebody put some information on there they wouldn't want to get
No.
Okay, that's what I thought you were gonna say.
What I would like to find out, and I know you can't do this, was the overall rating a good one? I know you can't say that. So what I'm going on is, like I said, at least 20 people came to speak to me in the last week. A couple parents, but staff members, and after what they heard last week, and they came to me and they said, how can this be? So I'm not putting my slant on it, I'm not saying this, I am simply reporting staff, because most staff don't live in the town and can't be here, so I'm just.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't speak to that only because it's an evaluation.
And I get that, which is why.
Unless we had Betsy's permission to speak to it.
Right,
We
which
can't
is why
speak to
I'm
that.
not asking you a question, because I know you can't do that. I understand a lot of stuff that I have is confidential too, so I'm not asking you, and that's fine. I'm not asking you to reveal anything confidential.
Right, sorry, he had to
okay,
stand up, and then we'll go back.
I was just being
She's trying to jump in on you.
I thought you were going this way.
I was, but I didn't see your hand before, sorry, Doreen, I'll get to you.
No worries.
Ray Peralt from 92 Beatty Hill Road. You say you use these evaluations to make a determination whether you were going to do a full search or make an offer, correct?
Right, not just your evaluations, by the way, the board did an evaluation also that was
Understood,
quite
but the same
extensive.
form, the same
We didn't use the
evaluation
same
went out,
sword,
right?
we did a very extensive based on the job description evaluation. as
The
well.
evaluations that went out for us to fill out,
Yes, we
you know,
used
as
those.
parents or the staff,
Yeah.
was there any question on there specifically whether you would support this person being hired, or would you rather see a full search?
No,
Okay. And my other question is, why a 5-year contract? Why a 5 versus a 2 or even